You have wondered for years why your heart returns to the same kind of fire, why your steps trace the same quiet circle around people who bruise your spirit. You tell yourself you know better, yet something inside keeps pulling you back to the familiar ache. It is strange how the soul leans toward what once wounded it, as if pain carried a forgotten message. You feel it in the silence, in that subtle tightening in your chest when someone repeats a pattern you swore you would never accept again. It is as if an old voice rises from the shadows and whispers that this hurt is yours, that you were shaped for it. You do not choose it consciously. Of course you do not. But a quieter part of you remembers an older longing, a childhood echo. You sense it like a night wind moving through a forest you thought you had left behind. Something in you keeps returning to the same kind of person, the same dynamic, the same unfinished story. And although you try to call it love, a deeper honesty tells you it is not love. It is repetition. It is recognition. It is a forgotten agreement between your wounds and your hopes. You feel invisible sometimes, as if those you choose look past your essence and touch only your fears. You watch yourself accept crumbs and call them devotion. You feel the weight of it, and still you stay. Not because you are weak, but because part of you believes the hurt is familiar enough to be home. You search for redemption through the very hands that break you. You wait for someone to choose you in the exact place where you once felt abandoned. And although part of you knows this cycle cannot be the whole truth, you have not yet seen the door hidden behind the pattern. You sense it is there, a quiet threshold waiting for you to walk through. Yet something keeps you standing in front of people who cannot meet you. Something keeps you hoping that this time the hurt will end differently. And beneath all of it, something still calls your name. You choose what wounds you because your unconscious remembers what your conscious mind forgets. It remembers the early nights when you felt unseen. It remembers the weight of wanting someone to stay and watching them turn away. That old memory becomes an inner compass, invisible but powerful. You follow it without noticing. You feel drawn toward people whose presence feels familiar, even if familiarity once meant pain. Your psyche is not trying to harm you. It is trying to complete something, to rewrite a story that froze inside you long ago. In the quiet places of your mind, the past and the present are not separate. They breathe into each other like two rivers merging under the moon. A face in adulthood can echo a gesture from childhood. A tone of voice can awaken a longing that never found a resting place. And you move toward it, not because it is healthy, but because it carries the scent of the unresolved. This is why your heart confuses hurt with depth, why you think intensity means connection, why the fire feels more honest than the gentle touch. You are not choosing cruelty, you are choosing recognition. The psyche prefers what it knows, even if what it knows is abandonment, dismissal, or inconsistency. Harmony feels strange. Kindness feels suspicious. Peace feels empty. The soul conditioned by chaos confuses stillness with boredom and confusion with love. And yet deep inside, you know there is another way, a quiet path leading away from the old forest. But to walk it you have to face the mirror. You have to look into the eyes of your patterns and see not the person who hurt you, but the child inside you who learned to feel small. There is a door there, a hidden threshold. You have been touching its surface for years, but you have not stepped through. And yet, the door remains open, waiting for the moment you can finally see it. There are moments when you feel the same familiar heaviness settling in your chest. You tell yourself you have grown, yet here you are again, drawn to a person who shows you affection with one hand and distance with the other. It feels like a cold night in a forest, the moon above you but no warmth in sight. You reach for them, hoping they will stay long enough to ease the ache. Yet something in their eyes always seems far away. and you feel that old sadness rising, the one you thought you left behind. From a psychological place, this moment is not random. It is the unconscious seeking resolution. You move toward people who resemble the emotional climate in which you first learned to need. If love once arrived with unpredictability, your body recognizes inconsistency as intimacy. If affection once felt conditional, you confuse longing with devotion. The inner child still reaches out, still trying to win what was never freely given. The metaphor is simple. It is like returning to an unfinished chapter in a book you never closed. The pages are worn, the ink faded, but the story still calls you. You walk through it again, hoping this time the ending will change. But the story cannot change unless the reader changes. Unless you close the book and choose a new one. This realization opens a crack in the wall. You start to see that the hurt you choose is not about the person in front of you. It is about the echo behind you, a memory dressed in a new face, asking to be felt one last time. You wake up one morning and feel the weight of all the times you tried to give yourself value through the eyes of others. You sense how much of your identity was built on being chosen, how often you shaped yourself to fit someone else's story. You see the way you offered more than you received and called it loyalty. And in that realization, a quiet grief rises, a grief for the parts of you that learned to survive by shrinking. Psychologically, this is the shadow revealing itself, the part of you that hides behind your longing, the part of you that believes you must endure pain to earn connection, the part that learned to make itself useful, attractive, available, or small in order to be loved. When this shadow rises, it often comes with confusion. You wonder why you keep giving chances to people who show you their limits repeatedly. You wonder why your heart bends until it almost breaks. The image appears like a cracked mirror in a dim room. Each fracture reflects a moment you abandoned yourself. Each shard shows a younger version of you who needed gentleness. And as you gaze into that mirror, you understand that the people you chose were merely reflections of this inner fracture. They showed you where you had split from yourself. This understanding softens the ache. You begin to see that the pattern was not punishment. It was a compass pointing inward. It was the psyche guiding you home to the parts you had forgotten. And with this clarity, the next step begins to appear. There comes a moment when the cycle no longer feels like destiny. It feels like a doorway, a quiet passage from unconscious repetition to conscious choice. You feel the shift when someone hurts you, and for the first time you do not collapse inward. You feel the old wound stirring, yet you breathe through it. You feel the urge to chase, yet you remain still. Something in you has awakened. Something in you remembers your worth. From a psychological view, this is the integration of the shadow. The moment the unconscious becomes conscious, the child inside you finally sees that the story was never about being chosen by someone else. It was about choosing yourself. It was about recognizing that the love you chased outside was the love you withheld from within. And once this recognition arises, the pattern begins to lose power. The old magnetic pull weakens. The familiar ache detaches from your identity. The metaphor becomes a river at dawn. The night is still present, but the sky is turning. The water reflects both darkness and the first rays of light. You stand at the edge, watching the current shift. You realize you do not have to cross the same river again. You can follow its course to a new horizon. You can let the past float downstream. And as this truth settles into your bones, you see that every hurt you chose was a whisper from the deeper self, calling you toward this moment of clarity. Everything begins to merge now. The old patterns, the mirror, the forest, the river, they form a single path leading back to your center. You start to see how the people who hurt you were not your fate, but your teachers. Not your punishment, but your reflections. They showed you where you were still fractured. They revealed where your soul still trembled. And now that you see it, something inside you softens. There is a quiet expansion in your chest, like dawn touching the edge of a dark sky. You feel yourself rising from the old story and stepping into a new one. You feel the presence of your deeper self, calm and steady, like a temple built within your breath. And you realize you do not need to search for love in the wounds of another. You carry a fire inside you that has waited years to be seen. The hurt fades into memory. The pattern loses its gravity. The forest becomes a place you can leave, not a place you must return to. And in this gentle shift, you feel the quiet truth you have been seeking, the one that was waiting beneath the repetition. You feel yourself coming home. You no longer need to choose what harms you. You no longer need to repeat the old ache. The river has carried your past downstream, and your hands are free again. There is space in your chest where fear once lived. There is light in the mirror where the cracks once dominated. And if you remain attentive, you will notice this shift in the small moments, in the way your heart responds to the world, in the way your breath settles gently in your body. In the days ahead, watch how you move toward and away from others. Notice the quiet instincts that rise within you. They will guide you. They will show you where your soul has healed. They will show you where your love belongs. And as you walk forward, you will feel a quiet presence beside you. It is your own spirit, once lost in the forest, now returning to your side. It whispers gently, reminding you that you are no longer choosing pain. You are choosing yourself. And in that choice, peace begins to bloom.